So today I want to talk about the second foundation of mindfulness, the mindfulness of feelings as feelings. So we've been talking about the four foundations of mindfulness. And for the last 3 weeks, we talked about the mindfulness of body as body and different aspects of that, starting with the breath and then moving into our body and the practice of how we put our body here, which is really crucial to how we practice. Sometimes we can get this idea that practice is about transcending the body or even escaping our body, getting out of the body. And even the Buddha had that idea or that mistaken way of practicing when he was practicing with the ascetics and doing practices to really get beyond the body, and realized that we need this body. This practice, awakening, happens in our bodies. So for those of us who are looking for a magic workaround to get past body, to get past feelings, to that magic place of waking up where all of a sudden everything is fixed, everything is perfect. But just, jumping over or skipping ahead a bit, I'd like to encourage you to take a step backwards and return to these foundational practices of the four foundations of mindfulness: body, feelings, perceptions, dharmas. So this is the second foundation of mindfulness, the mindfulness of feelings as feelings. And when we talk about feelings, feelings encompass two things. They encompass physical sensations, actually, in our body, and emotions. These are both feelings. So in terms of the way this is taught, they're not separated out, which may be surprising to some of you. But for those of us who really have done practices in body work, all of our yogis here and people who have done a lot of practice with the body, our athletes, different types of therapists, we know that the feelings, the physical sensations in our body are often very connected to our emotions and vice versa. So we did the practice this morning of the beautiful monsters by Tsoknyi Rinpoche. And this beautiful monsters is a way of working with our afflictive emotions, our difficult emotions that arise by being present to them, by attending, by allowing, by observing. And this is the way we work with our feelings. The Buddha taught that suffering arises because we view the 5 aggregates as something fixed or as me. We identify this thing that we call a me. I exist, I am. And you can hear this in people. We often call things my. And this really kind of stands out for me. People might say, my depression, my ADD, my sadness. Why is it my? What makes this a my? Why does it have to be I, as separate from the world around me? So when we view a fixed self, and we view these 5 aggregates, and I'll tell you what they are in just a minute, as fixed and unchanging, this causes suffering. This is why we suffer. Because we hold, we get stuck. We have this mistaken idea that things are the way they are now and they will always be this way. And there's some kind of an unchanging thing that exists in the universe. And if there's one thing we can be very certain of in the universe, is that everything changes. Every single thing that arises passes away. Everything that arises passes away. We saw this so clearly in our meditation practice. You know, we'll have a thought so compelling. Oh, pizza. Or, oh, that person. It just pulls us over. And so much that we feel this solidity around it, the more we are invested in it. Oh, I'm so hungry. I really want that pizza. Or, God, that person is so evil. I can't even believe they exist in this world. And we get like hard. The solution is to simply let go. Simply, right? Whether we want to or not, things are going to shift. So it's acknowledging that that happens that gives us opening, it gives us space. Suffering arises because we view the 5 aggregates as a fixed self. So what are the 5 aggregates? They're our body, our physical form, feelings, and I just told you those are those are both emotions and physical sensations, perceptions, formations, and consciousness. This might sound familiar to you. For those of you who have chanted the Heart Sutra in the morning, no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. These are the 5. Suffering comes from holding on. Getting stuck. Thinking that things don't change when in fact they do. Even the most dire circumstances change. Today, as I look out the window, I see a swirling snowstorm. It's so beautiful and shifts constantly. The snow blows this way and then it blows that way. If I were to look out there and think this is the way the world is all the time, I might be surprised when tomorrow I wake up and there's no snowstorm. Or maybe in July I wake up and there's no snowstorm. Things change constantly. And so it is with our own body, with our own mind, with our own practice. So the way that we can start to let go of our suffering, which is caused by clinging, is to do what Uchiyama Roshi calls opening the hand of thought. Simply releasing, allowing the changes that happen to change. The Buddha taught that there are 3 kinds of feelings. There's pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. 3 kinds of feelings. Of course, we know we've been talking about emotions in the past, and we know we can break that down much further. But in the basic teachings, there are 3 kinds of feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So back to today's snowstorm, it's snowing. That is simply what is. In this moment, it's snowing. Where does suffering arise? When I think, oh, it's cold. I hate cold. That's unpleasant. Or when we think, oh, it's snowing. I wish it would snow every day. I love the snow. I want it to snow all the time. Pleasant. The 3rd kind is neutral. It's just snowing. Okay, that's the way it is. Our feelings change. I don't know if y'all have noticed that, but I've noticed that a lot. You know, even the most difficult circumstances, we can feel that. Our feelings are just feelings. They're not us. It's not me. It's not you. They're not stuck. They're not permanent. Feelings change. I can remember being very sick. And when I was young, as a child, I was sick a lot. I was a kid who was sick all the time. And there was this suffering and this feeling of permanence that, oh, here it is again. This is me. I am a person who is sick. And then later, I am a person who is depressed. Or then later, I am a person who, fill in the blanks, whatever it is for you. We identify and get so hard with that. I am a person who is unfeeling. I am a person who is angry. When we get fixed, when we get stuck, it doesn't permit the range of possibilities that are present, that is present in every single moment. There's such a range. So even being sick, we can find change. Even having a fever, we have times where, oh, fever is really hot. Oh, not so much. Whoa, I feel kind of dizzy. And even in the next second, it might be, in this moment, I'm not exactly dizzy. Or, oh my goodness, my body hurts. You know, when we have the flu, how much our bodies can hurt. Oh, my body hurts. This is terrible. But when we really pay attention, we can find that the body doesn't hurt as a constant. It hurts as a coming and going, as a wave. This is the impermanence of feelings, the impermanence of the entire universe. Our feelings are not us. Our feelings are part of our experience as human beings in the world that changes constantly. The Buddha taught us to contemplate feelings as feelings in order to know feelings as they really are. What are feelings really? When we have this questioning, you know, we take the period off of the end of the sentence, this is me, and change it to a question mark. Is this me? We take the period off of the sentence, I am sad, and put a question mark on. Sad. Huh, what is this? We can become curious. We can learn things. Feelings have a lot to teach us. Again, both physical and emotional. Our feelings usually play a role in directing our thoughts and mind. Remember, I talked about the pizza, you know. Like this. I really like this. I really want this. So they can become linked. I'm cold. I hate being cold. And then that can set the tone for how our mind reacts when we get stuck. So they become linked to our thoughts and linked to our mind. And when we practice the mindfulness of feelings as feelings, recognizing them as they are, then we back away from that. We notice the change and we cultivate awareness, a spacious awareness that doesn't come from the thinking mind. It's an awareness of the changes that happen within the stillness. Our Zazen practice is a really good place to practice this because we're still. We sit, we let our breath settle, we let our body line up, and we notice the arising and falling of thoughts, of sensations, of perceptions. We notice this arising and falling. And what we can find when we put that question mark on the end, rather than the period, or the end stop for those of you from other countries, when we take that off and put in a question mark, we can have curiosity. And then we get to learn stuff. And this is where our practice really becomes interesting, because practice is fascinating. There's nothing more fascinating than observing how the world works, especially through the vehicle of ourselves, whom we tend to like a lot. When we observe with that question mark on the end, our feelings no longer control us. And then we can develop some curiosity. Here's that one again. I wonder what's going on there. Interesting. Even difficult things, when we put the question mark on the end, it becomes, interesting. We can learn things about ourselves, things about the world, things about our friends, about others, about every situation, when we shift from an idea of a fixed and permanent self to the truth that everything that arises passes away, the truth of change. How do feelings arise anyway? Where do they come from? How does this happen? They arise through our senses. Maybe we smell or we see or we touch. And then they connect. They make contact. And when we contact, we get these mental impressions, and these are a feeling. So the Buddha taught in the Ratnakuta Sutra, it's sort of like somebody throws, I want to call it something very soft, not a rock, so I'm going to call it a clump of dirt or a pine cone. Somebody throws something at a dog, and the dog is like, hey, wait a minute. And the dog gets mad, not at the person who throws, but at the actual clump of dirt. Rawr. I can't believe you hurt me. So this is what it's like when an ordinary person caught up in dualistic conception is accustomed to thinking that the 5 aggregates are the root of suffering. In fact, the root of suffering is the lack of understanding about the impermanence, the selflessness, the interdependent nature of the 5 aggregates. In other words, the suffering comes from the thought that this is, without the understanding that things change. So to repeat that, an ordinary person caught in dualistic conception is accustomed to thinking that the 5 aggregates are the root of suffering. But in fact, the root of suffering is the lack of understanding about the impermanent, selfless, and interdependent nature of the 5 aggregates. Everything that arises falls away. Even this. Even the most perfect day ends. Even the most beautiful relationships end. Even the most terrible, most painful things pass. I was thinking of this a lot last fall. My dad died, and there were times when I felt so much pain and a real fusing of physical pain with emotions, meaning I was so sad and felt this loss of my father, whom I loved so much. And I would feel pain in my body as well. Where's the separation? Is there any? Sometimes I would feel grateful to feel the sadness coming up, because sometimes it becomes overwhelming and we simply can't feel. When we have a lot on our plate, it can be hard just to feel what we're feeling. And certainly in this time period, you know, we all have a lot on our plate. We're in a pandemic. We haven't had the world we thought we had for some time, or the world that we wanted isn't here. All we have is what's here now, which is that we're in a pandemic and we have a lot of heavy stuff. Many of us have lost family, have lost friends. We become afraid to go out to interact with the world. We're afraid of getting sick. There's anger in society. We've had political turmoil. We're on the brink of war with Russia over Ukraine. We have a lot going on. So when it becomes so big, it can make sense to want to check out. However, the only way through the pandemic, this human life, anything, is through. We don't get to skip ahead a bit, press fast forward, or jump over. We have to go through. When we go through with the understanding that what we're feeling is impermanent, that it changes constantly, then that gives us a spaciousness and a curiosity. So like I said, when my dad died, sometimes I would feel like, oh, I can't take this. I can't take this. This is so painful. And the knowledge and the awareness, not just the mental knowledge, but just watching my body, staying with it, feel the pain, feel the pain. Soon it would shift into something different. Maybe tenderness, maybe release, sometimes anger, sometimes confusion, always shifting. And the moment after I would feel so much pain, I would often feel so comforted by something. And the moment when we think things are stuck, if we can just put that question mark on the end, we have so much possibility. This week, my close friend's father died. Oh, my dad died in September, and her dad died 2 days ago. This is a friend whom I love dearly. And so immediately when her dad died, I went to my altar and offered incense and chanted for her father. I never met her father. I've heard about him a lot over the years, and I love him for giving me my friend. And yet I never met him in person. And as I chanted for him, I cried, connecting with that feeling of what it feels like to lose a dad. Through my own experience, I cried. And in that moment, I felt such a relief to feel what I was feeling. It reminded me of how much I loved my dad, of how precious our human relationships are, of how much we care, and how beautiful the world can be when we care about each other so deeply. Last night I watched the service in Vietnam. via the internet, which has been such a gift in so many ways. I watched the live service of the final ceremony for Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh before they prepared to cremate his body. And I was so touched by the beauty of that service, by how much care was taken to make it such a service. And the monks and nuns all there with full heart honoring their teacher. So beautiful. And I was grateful also for the feelings that arose in me: care, tenderness, respect. Our feelings teach us things when we're curious about them. Feelings can come from so many different places. From our body, right? I remember once I fell when I was hiking and I really hurt my shoulder. And I had that pain in my shoulder for so many years, just constant pain. So it could have a physical root. And feelings can also have a psychological root. So this pain in my shoulder in some way became fused with some emotional pains. It was there. Such that even now, I don't have this pain every day anymore. But sometimes it comes up. And then I'll be like, what's going on? There's a clue that I can investigate if I'm curious. Feelings might come out of habit. We just get so used to being a certain way. They might come out of the period of time, losing somebody or seeing a beautiful flower and just feeling. They might come out of our own history. When we're curious and conscious and aware with concentrated mind, with awareness of our body, our feelings can be great teachers for us. And this is what I really want to end with today. To end with the question mark. What can we learn when we remove the hard, fixed idea of I and open to the possibilities of the entire universe? The possibilities are infinite. When we stay open and aware with the practice to guide us, the possibilities are endless. Thank you.